I'm very sorry for having to speak in English, but since English also is not my maternal tongue, since as some of my aggressive friends in the United States like sometimes to refer to my English as Arafat English, you know, the way Yasser Arafat mumbled to Western reporters, so I hope you will be able to follow me. First, let me really thank you, because, why? Because, you know, although many Western people sympathized with you in the difficult years of the previous decade, nonetheless, they, as I precisely written in many of my books, precisely apropos Kosova, they liked you as long as you were a victim, no? The moment you no longer want to be a victim, you yourself become ethnic cleanser, potentially terrorist, fundamentalist, whatever. That's the problem with liberalism, no? They like you as a victim so that they can bring you food, they worry if your children get enough medicine, and so on, no? That's another story, I will tell it later. So again, I'm glad to be here because it was easy to sympathize with you, with all of you here. Serbs, Albanians, all who are here. But now that you are half forgotten, no? Like, I think now it's the time and place. Now it's the time to come here, and you are the right place to come. So again, thank you for your introduction, which immediately brings us to the topic of psychoanalysis. How? You may imagine how. You know, as you said, first in English, then in your language. And of course, my fantasy immediately exploded. What you really said in that Albanian language part, like what it was probably about me, but you know why I was in anxiety? Because, you know, it's the same dream as is under communism. We all wanted to see, I heroically resisted it, your secret police dossier, when at the end the archives were open. Of course, it was worthless, as we discovered. All the truly sensitive dossiers, or even part of dossiers, were burned, cleansed, no? But that's a nice example of ambiguity, how even if we all dismissed the secret police dossiers as just lies of those in power, somehow I noticed, at least in my country, Slovenia, with many of my dissident, half dissident friends, somehow they did trust the dossiers, as if, you know, there is some truth about them written in the dossiers. They will learn some deep thing about them. So that's how I relate to that Albanian part of your language, no? It was on me, the truth of me, but like, you know, my genome, you know, like what I really am, what I never can say, I'm forever separated from it. And this separation between what I am in my stupid reality, the way I experience myself, and the truth about me, articulated in a different place, inaccessible to me, in psychoanalysis we call this symbolic castration. This gap. So thank you for castrating experience. That's what you expect from a good friend, no? Okay, so let me go on. I sincerely mean it. I'm glad to be here, because you are now a place of, I wouldn't say experiment, this has a too light flavor, but of a situation which is in a way, although basically may-be resolved, still totally open. Economically, it's not clear what will happen. Socially, inter-ethnic relations, all the challenges, and so on and so on. And the problem, you should always, while being grateful to foreigners if they really helped you and are helping you, you should also be aware of the price you are paying for this. And I don't think this obvious leftist reproach to you, oh, you betrayed your leftist soul, and as the price for independence you became an American military colony or whatever. No, I mean another thing. It's much more dangerous and ambiguous. I mean how Western liberals, humanitarians, bombarded you with their notion of multiculturalism, human rights, and so on, which I think often displays an extremely vulgar racism and arrogance masked as its opposite, you know, as attempts to try to understand and so on and so on. Even, I claim, even when foreigners come to your country or to mine and claim we try to understand you. My God, this means they treat you basically, there is always at least an element of treating you like some primitive aborigines, no, who do some crazy dances and then you try to understand them and so on, no? I mean, this is how I like to shock my friends. A true multicultural tolerance today, I think, should start from the premise, no, most people, most other nations are stupid and boring. Why should I try to understand them? We will never understand each other to the end. What we need is to learn to live side by side with people who, they don't understand us, we don't understand them. We just, you know, that's the true art of tolerance, to live side by people who are foreigners to us, not this eternal liberal blackmail, oh, I want to know your folkloric dances, all your myths, and so on. You know, like this, the worst racist cliche from the 90s early of the West. To understand what goes on in Balkan, you must know the entire 1,000 years at least of history. No, I claim it's exactly the opposite. You must know what goes on now. And thousands of years of history were evoked to legitimize what goes on now. For example, it's very simplified, but if you ask me for the basic element of what went on in ex-Yugoslavia already from the mid-80s, the problem for me, if you ask me, was a very brutally simple one. Starting from, I would say, maybe even early 70s, but it's more complex, at least from early 80s, the old Yugoslav communist regime faced a crisis of legitimization. In the 70s, they could have said, you know, remember, 73, Yom Kippur War, lack of, the problems with oil supply, so it was a general crisis. The problem is that all Europe, even the world, starts to function, entered a new era of relative welfare, while we in ex-Yugoslavia remained even more down. So it was the problem of legitimacy, and I think this is basically what Milosevic did. He was the first, not the only, but the first and the one who most radically realized this scheme of providing legitimacy for the local, in this sense, I mean Serb, of the Serb Republic, communist nomenclatura, by making this devil's pact with nationalist intelligentsia. As I wrote in one of the essays whom you were kind enough to include in the book, no? This is the source of what I call, in contrast to Western, so-called industrial military complex, the poetic military complex that we had here, no? When you get warriors together with poets, this is bad. So, again, this made me, in my old age, a Platonist. You know, when Plato said, let's throw out poets of the polis, you know, we learn, people, for example, people say, Karadzic, it's a bad poet. First, I don't think he's a bad poet. I think he's a criminal.